Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we're covering the topic of accounts payable. Is often described as the backbone of an organization's financial health. Of course it is. Yet it's also an area where inefficiency in manual processes can lead to significant challenges. As automation and AI continue to transform and AP workflows, manual businesses are grappling with questions about the future of their teams, compliance, and overall efficiency. Today we're diving into these topics. I've got joining me today James Chandler from DocuWare, who has spent almost 2 decades at the forefront of technology and innovation, some of which in the financial department, which is what the topic of today is going to be about. Thank you very much for joining me today, James.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Just a quick intro, I guess, just so that some of our audience can learn a little bit more about yourself and the 2 decades that you've spent in this area or this industry. Having worked in document technology industry or the document technology industry for almost 20 years, what personal experiences have most shaped, I guess, your experience, and what technological evolution have you seen?
Yeah, so I suppose in the last 2 decades, as you like to keep reminding me, last 2 decades.
It doesn't look like you've been in it for 2 decades.
I'll take that. No, in the last 20 or so years, it's been more around documents and digitization. It's how that has evolved and developed from, I still remember, and this will age me now, is back in the days when people started to scan a lot more. And they were capturing scans, but ultimately they were just capturing pictures. But it was really the first step and the first stage of then starting to take that digitization journey. From there, we've introduced optical character recognition, where it's now starting to read the information on the page. And now we're at a stage, if you move really far forward, into a stage now where that's a given. And what we're doing now is really interrogating the information on the page and even using AI to leverage the understanding of what is in that document and how to route that around a business.
Okay, and correct me, I guess if I'm wrong, your background originated in print primarily. That's kind of where you started out. You kind of came into the industry.
So I've been working in this industry. So it's, it was around the multifunctional devices and the software that maybe sat around a multifunctional device. Okay. So it was really, it was actually challenging why people are printing and then looking at ways of reducing that printing. And then it's obviously built into automation of digital documents throughout our business.
Well, okay, and I guess that's the natural evolution that I guess most documents have taken. Everything's moving into the digital world, really. We're seeing a lot more paperless requests from customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So naturally that, I guess, leads into products like DocuWare. Where it's supporting with that transition for many businesses.
And I think a lot of the statistics are pointing that way as well. So the number of businesses now, reductions in print, and they want to increase in digitization. Not only that, but then think about the different workforces that are coming into businesses, starting at their first jobs. They're expecting this technology at their fingertips now, not to be having to rifle through pieces of paper and looking in manual filing cabinets and that type of thing.
Yeah. What I guess in your experience, what has driven that technological change? Has culture been a large part of that? Has it been about, I guess, cost efficiency? What has ultimately been at the forefront of driving that technological change?
One of the biggest accelerators is probably the adoption of cloud solutions. So document management is no new thing. It's been around for 30, 40 years. But really what has accelerated it is people's happiness, comfort in using cloud-based systems. This means now they can access and leverage technology that they've not been able to previously without investing huge sums of money. Absolutely. It can now start regardless of business size. So it could be a small business to an enterprise business now. They really can access this information and access the technology that allows them to leverage automation and accessing the information.
Okay, I guess has the adoption of this kind of technology, especially in finance departments around AP, obviously this is still something that many businesses haven't even looked at yet and are starting to. When I say this technology is not exactly new, what do you think, I guess, has caused the lack of adoption, or what has not necessarily driven the adoption element up until now? Is it mainly cost? Is it cost of the equipment and the technology? Or
there's a few kind of driving factors. I would say when we're speaking to customers, there may be, you've got kind of a few different types of customers. You've got those businesses that have kind of organically grown and don't realize they've got a problem until it's really putting them under a lot of strain. So maybe they've acquired a couple of businesses or they've grown quicker than they expected to, so suddenly a lot of paperwork has started to become, and they're starting to really feel the strain of actually trying to pay invoices on time, for example. Others may have looked at it 5-10 years ago, and maybe it was cost prohibitive at that time because maybe the cloud solutions that were not available that they maybe ordinarily are available now. So revisiting it now makes a massive difference. And then we've got people that just don't realize that there are solutions out there that can help them.
Of course, it's those late adopters, the laggards, and the tipping point, you could say, that don't realise that there's such efficiencies with using this kind of technology.
Absolutely, and there's some people that are quite happy with the status quo, and that's absolutely fine. But it does get to a point where, not only for their own sanity in terms of being able to process these documents in an efficient way, but also for a business's competitiveness, they really need to investigate these things so they can start turning things around quicker to improve their own operational efficiencies.
Yeah, no, it's something we've found with quite a few clients that we've dealt with, worked with initially. I think their thought process is everything's fine. You know, this how much efficiency could we really achieve through implementing something like this? And then once you go through the process, you do the consultation, and they realise actually how much time is being spent on processing. A lot of the documents, the storage of those documents, there's a lot of potential there, and it's something that comes up quite often.
It's every company we speak to have a process, and 99 times out of 100 the process works. But is it the best way they could potentially be running that department and that process? Are they looking at those documents? Are they understanding all the risks that come with that process?
Yeah.
Are they looking at the time constraints? Are they looking even at how happy are the people doing that process?
Yeah.
Yes, it might work, but are people coming in on a Monday morning and shrugging their shoulders and not very happy going home on the Friday?
Yeah.
Got all these things to consider when we're looking at these processes.
Well, that's an interesting point, because it's something that quite often comes up when you talk about AI and automation, is the concern around people losing their jobs. That if we adopt AI, if we adopt automation, what about our employees? Are they going to have jobs anymore? And that is something that I think comes up regularly whenever this topic's discussed. And I think you've touched on something quite poignant there, which is, in reality, the workforce tends to be overburdened with manual, mundane, laborious tasks that they could otherwise automate, and use AI to kind of alleviate a little bit of their time to be spent on, as human beings, more creative tasks. And even in a finance department, there is creative tasks that need to be done. And I think it's sometimes adopting that technology to realize that you're trying to take away 20, 30%, 40% of that manual task that anything could do, a robot could do, and putting that workforce into something else more creative, into something else that adds a lot more value to the business long term.
Yeah. No, 100%. Look, you speak to accounts payable teams, they know their job. They know their job inside out. They know their suppliers. They know the business. They even can spot an invoice and say, that doesn't look right from 100 yards. I don't know how they do it. They're always amazing at their jobs. They're not paid to be sat there and keying out manually. That's not their expertise. It's kind of just, unfortunately, it's just the mundane part of a role typically, and we can alleviate that. Yeah. We've done a webinar together, and I remember one of the polls where we gave some options on if we could give you 10 hours a week back, which ordinarily is not far-reaching for anybody. Give you 10 hours a week back, what would you do? And pretty much everyone in the poll said is get on with my actual day-to-day job. Yeah. So it's freeing up that time.
Yeah, and I think this element does absorb a lot of, especially accounts teams, finance teams, this manual aspect where they could really be spending that time. And as you say, the job satisfaction, sometimes going home feeling overworked, overpressured, they're maybe not vocalizing it, but they're feeling it, where software and technology like this can help alleviate, provide more job satisfaction, and remove just the boring stuff, put the human back in human beings.
Absolutely. There's plenty of other things that, especially because it's so accessible to different sizes of organizations, they'll all have their own different pressures. And some people in an accounts payable team might have more than one hat as well. So they're actually doing a couple of days a week on this, a couple of days a week on that. So suddenly to just take that strain away and know that actually it's getting processed quickly and accurately, and it's going to take risk away from how we're processing it currently as well.
Yeah, and I think that risk element, to touch on just the compliance side of things, because there's been a lot of compliance and legislation around financial processes is always changing. It's always developing. There's always new things coming about, and over the last 20 odd years, there's definitely been a large amount of development in that area. and it's also, I think, looking at how these technologies support with maintaining compliance automatically, rather than relying on an individual or individuals in an organization to maintain that compliance. And from the financial aspect or the accounts payable aspect, systems like this supporting with that, reducing the risk. I mean, in your experience, have you seen a lot of change in that specific area?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably another way of helping and accelerating what we're seeing in the market right now. I remember when we were first having document management discussions to become a compliant organization, I seem to recall that we had to, or the customer had to get in touch with the tax office and have somebody come in, investigate the system, and then give them a piece of paper to say, yep, you're okay. You can now use this to store your invoices. And you can get rid of the pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Whereas now it is an accepted form of working. And so long as we do have a compliance system, then absolutely auditors and the like are going to be very happy with the documents being stored in this way.
Yeah.
And we don't have to go and jump through the hoops of filling forms in and getting people to site.
Yeah, and I think I guess worth noting as well that not every system necessarily is a compliant system. There are lots of other products out there that can be, but it's all about, I guess, how they're built, how they're structured, how they're worked into the organization.
Compliance can come in all different forms as well, but at first and foremost, you're absolutely right. We could give an application and say this is a compliant application, but actually, often it's the configuration of that application that brings the compliance. I always say the most obvious example I could give is I give you a compliant document management system, but you and 10 other people are all using the same username and password and signing invoices off and looking at invoices. Then where is the compliance in that? An auditor's not going to have that clear audit trail.
Yeah, and I think we were talking off camera previously a few weeks ago about there's certain countries, I think like Germany has a compliance list of products that can be used. I wonder if obviously something like that may come about in the UK at some point. I guess just to help give a bit of guidance on it.
There's lots of legislation or lots of processes are being introduced, particularly in Europe. So like e-invoicing and having certain data formats all being standardized across the country. So I think Spain, Italy are seeing this kind of impact. So it might be a case that does the UK adopt something like that in the future? If they do, we've already got platforms that are doing that Europe-wide anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think it's likely the UK is going to adopt something like that, or are there other trends that you perhaps think maybe the UK is going to end up adopting or implementing in the next few years?
That's a very good question. I don't think anybody could actually put their
well, I was hoping you brought your magic ball today and you were going to predict the future for us.
So. I think the beauty of it is so we've got global cloud-based products, which have got feature sets not that are just UK facing, but they're globally facing. So it doesn't really, in the sense of if something was introduced, we're able to help businesses because it's going to be brand new to an organization. It could be a lot more complicated when people first start to get their heads around these things. So, but we've got expertise that we can call on. We've got applications that can already process this kind of information quickly and easily.
Well, I think that's probably one of the quite beneficial or added value elements to DocuWare is, at least on this accounts payable side of things, it's supporting with automating accounts payable processes. It's the ability for it to also develop into other parts of the business. It's scalable, it's flexible, it's compliant. So I guess that, that added value versus perhaps using just an accounts payable dedicated product. I don't know if you can touch on a little bit more about, I guess, the ability for it to expand into an organization.
This is it. It is a platform. DocuWare is a platform. We often talk around accounts payable. It is a very successful area with DocuWare, and that's probably one of the reasons we do talk about it so much. But in addition to that, that platform can be configured to whatever we need. So it could be contract management. You might have supplier contracts. So even if we just took a natural step, just looking a little further outside of the accounts payable process and invoices, we could do supplier onboarding and contract management. But then that contract management could then expand. So actually, we want to manage contracts for our employees. Yeah. So we can do employee management and onboarding around employees. But then actually, we're a sales organization. Well, how can we process our sales orders that come in? Suddenly, there's spider webs across a business. Anywhere you think you're receiving information and documents with information on that you need to use, whether that comes in by pieces of paper or it's coming by email or even over some sort of electronic communication, we could potentially help and harness that information and automate it and route it around the business.
Yeah, and I think that's quite key. It's it being able to take that information and putting it into another system, move it to a different part of the business, which I mean, every business at some point will have struggled with connecting the software and the technology it has, so that information is able to be shared easily across the business. And I think one of the things that makes systems like this and products like this so powerful for an organization is its ability to do that, for it to make it accessible for a lot of different individuals in an organization.
It doesn't stop there. There is significant R&D invested in this product continuously. We have 2 product updates a year with new features and functions that will come as standard to subscribers. AI is being introduced more and more into the product. So there's a recent acquisition of Natif AI, which is now starting to integrate into the product, in which we can now start to intelligently split, classify documents, read handwriting in those pages, and then interrogate that and potentially communicate with other systems in the business to make sure that we're validating and updating those systems with that information in those documents.
Yeah, you preempted my question that was coming up, actually. I was going to ask you about AI and where that's going, and I guess what, not necessarily what new features we could look out for, people could look out for within DocuWare, but I guess looking a bit broader, what kind of features, I guess, should businesses start to expect, I guess, with AI being adopted and integrated into systems like DocuWare?
So this is always the trickiest one.
Give some predictions.
Well, I think right now AI is in a perfect position around document classification, reading information within those documents, intelligently routing documents around. What I would not say where AI is in a position for right now is making business decisions. I think you've probably seen it in the news. Apple Intelligence has launched, and the generative AI has started to create false headlines.
Yeah.
Do we really trust that technology to start making our business decisions?
No, not quite yet, I don't think. I mean, I think it would be risky to do so.
And it's absolutely, and DocuWare is very much a people-first product. So we've talked around making people's lives easier. This isn't here to replace people. This is here to assist people and improve the processes that people are involved in automatically anyway.
Yeah, and you want those decision makers within a business, an organization, to, I guess, still have control over those certain elements. You want the backbone of the work. You want the boring work to be done by the robot, by the AI, the automation element. And then you want the decision makers within each department to be able to decide whether something gets pushed or authorized. I think you've got to have that control. If you don't, then, essentially what is the need for human beings then?
So I think maybe AI potentially be leveraged more as an advisor to say, look, I believe this is the information, or this is what you're looking for, and then it can provide that kind of content and context, but not necessarily make that decision.
So more for validating and verifying information, and perhaps cross-checking against other resources online, that sort of stuff, rather than it perhaps actively creating and pushing out processes or documents or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. All right, James, thanks very much for joining us today.
No problem. Nice to be here.
Very excited to, I guess, see where 2025 takes us. And to learn a little bit more about, I guess, what DocuWare has in plan. We're definitely going to be keeping an eye out for new features and developments. Again, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Have a lovely day. Take care.